All right, folks, it's time for us to talk Hawkeyes with all of you right here at the Voice of College Football. Please settle in for the next 50 or 60 minutes and leave those comments and questions there for Corey Bratta and myself. We talk Iowa football now for 195th consecutive week. Hawkeyes live. And again, settle in, leave those comments and questions. Corey Bratta from the Hawkeye of the Storm, the guy that makes it go for us on Tuesdays. Corey, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Don't you love it when I give you the old couch view?
Yeah, I was going to say, is that the new set?
No, it's not the new set.
Okay.
Some days, as you probably know, as far as trying to set things up, you're running into a bit of a time crunch. So this was the easiest way to make this happen on time this week. But we're all done with spring, right? We recapped that last week. We're going to be moving into summer conditioning here soon. We got players who are transferring in, set to arrive on campus this month. And, now we got preseason. ESPN comes out with their way too early top 25 once the national title game's over. But I saw Joe Klatt came out with his top 25. He's got Iowa in it. And it's an interesting conversation. He thinks Iowa could potentially win 9 to 10 games if the cards, fall where they do. And if they do, then as we've talked about, they're a playoff contender. So, and I saw there was also an article that Mark Gronowski's dad, tweeted out here earlier today. I've not read it, but it was a feature article on Mark and his journey and what he's trying to do, provide for this Iowa offense. And boy, it's another year where excitement is, this is the third straight season where Iowa fans are hoping for substantially better quarterback play. And it's probably their best chance yet. I think people really thought that Cade McNamara was a great opportunity to adjust things 2 years ago, and it didn't happen. And then, of course, this last year, people still had hope that it was the biggest issue was the fact that Cade had been injured. But I think we found that maybe he wasn't as talented or qualified for the job as some people thought. So, yeah, it's just we're counting down the months now. That we're in the month of May officially, and football season and fall camp will be here before you know it.
All right, Corey, let's circle back to these rankings. So, as you mentioned, Joel Klatt has Iowa at 23.
Joe Klatt has Iowa at 23, I believe.
Okay.
Yep. I'll confirm that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case.
There are some other publications and sites out there that have released early top 25s, and it seems to be as though Iowa is basically just on the fringe of the top 25 in most people's estimations. I would love to have these various services and individuals go and be completely isolated from one another, not have any idea what anybody else is ranking anyone, and see then what they do. Because I find it hard to believe that these various services, if they were completely isolated from anything else, would be that much in sync with each other. Because it seems like these teams are 3 and 4 spots away from each other all across the board from top to bottom. And that's just becomes this group think exercise.
Yeah, it's called a lazy exercise. Although I do think there's a lot of people in the business that know enough about the landscape. I don't listen to Joel Klatt's show. I just don't have time to listen to podcasts like you don't. Although I listen to yours, you don't listen to mine. But
I have proven that wrong. In recent weeks.
Whenever we're talking women's basketball, we know you're going to be there. But so one thing that I will say though is I follow Joe Klatt and I listened to part of his show. I just kind of scrolled through part of his show the other day, and it's interesting. He was actually sort of giving a breakdown on each team. He was going one by one from 25 to 1, and I'm thinking that's a lot of you got to have a lot of knowledge to be able to break down each team from a person. Could you do that?
Well, that's his job.
I know it's his job. His job is not to know the ins and outs of every team in the country. 130 some FBS teams.
He's not giving a synopsis of 130 FBS teams. He's giving a synopsis of the top 25 teams in the country. That's his job. Right.
But he has to know what the top 25 teams are. He's got to be able to weigh that against the other teams that are not in the top 25.
No, he needs to weigh that against about 20 other teams.
Okay, well,
he's not looking at Georgia Southern to figure out
you
should they
watch
be in the top 25.
you watch Fresno State will be in the top 10, and it'll surprise all of you. So,
Okay,
Brian Ferentz.
I'll make this point that am I prepared to do that right this second? No, but have I been prepared to do that most, if not every year of the last 15 years? Yes, I could do the same thing.
Well, it is funny because he got to Iowa State and he spent like 2 seconds on him. It was like he gave a pretty thorough breakdown of Iowa and Mark Gronowski, but then he got to Iowa State and he said something about how, well, they just lost Higgins and Knoll. How will they respond? Third-year quarterback. I really like Matt Campbell. And then he just moved on.
Okay, see?
Well, I mean, I understand. It's going to take a long time to break down all 25 thoroughly.
And if I'm not mistaken, it sounds like he gave a great breakdown on Mark Gronowski, not necessarily on Iowa.
Yeah, he basically just said Phil Parker's defense is always going to be good. He said Phil Parker's defense is always going to be good, which he failed to mention that it wasn't as good last year, but it was still,
Sure,
I think it was
fine.
good. Yeah, it was not as elite as it has been.
You're proving my point that it's not that difficult to do.
Well, yeah, if that's.
I'm guessing he is more focused on the Big Ten than any other conference, then probably the Big 12 because he has to do some Big 12, and then probably and the SEC because the SEC is the SEC.
Right.
And then you can pick the couple teams off the top of the ACC.
Yeah, he probably doesn't care about the ACC at all.
Probably not much, but he probably knows what Clemson and Miami and Florida State are doing or something. Anyway, my point being that when Gronowski was signed by Iowa, he probably took some time and watched some film, got familiar with him, and that's his job. He should.
Hey, I did finally do a breakdown on my channel of incoming quarterback Jeremy Hecklinski. I finally published a video on him and sort of a film breakdown over the weekend. And it's interesting as I watch him, I thought of comps, and I mentioned this during the video. He reminds me a little bit of Trace McSorley. And we said the same thing about Bo Pribula during the offseason when Iowa was recruiting him. Now, this was a more opportunistic ad, given the fact that they brought over Warren Ruggiero, the analyst, who, by the way, had some impressive stuff. We talked about him. He had some impressive offenses at Wake Forest and flew under the radar. But so this could be a massive addition to this staff, and the fact that they were able to bring in Hecklinski, who, by the way, has 4 years in front of him, and but he's got some mobility. He's got every throw, it appears. He can throw moving left, throw moving right, throw across his body, makes difficult throws. I will say I cringed a time or two watching him because he wears the number 12, and there was at least 1 or 2 times where he was on his back foot throwing. Like, please, heaven forbid, don't do that. Undersized quarterback wearing 12, bad footwork. But anyways, we won't dwell on that. Yeah, I don't know why Cade McNamara struggled with his footwork at Iowa. And I did think he struggled with his footwork at Iowa. Not as badly as Petrus or Stanley, but he struggled with his footwork. Partially, I'm sure, because he was being coached by Brian Ferentz. So I don't know about Hecklinski if he's going to be the quarterback of the future. They're not going to hang on to all 6 guys. They probably would. Somebody said, well, they're going to leave before fall camp. There's no portal window. Is there a portal window, a third magical window that I'm not aware of, Mark? No. I mean, if they were going to leave, they would have left.
Unless there's somebody that has opportunity as a graduate transfer, but I don't think that applies to any of them.
Maybe to Jackson Stratton. Maybe. I don't. I believe did he have 2 years at Colorado State? I don't know if he's planning on. See, that one. That would be. That would be an interesting one. So Jackson Stratton. Let's see. He was enrolled in 2022, 2023. Yeah. So he if he's ahead of schedule, this is year. He's entering year 4. So, if he's ahead of schedule and he's graduating a year early, then he could potentially, I don't know if he is or not, but he's the only guy that I'm aware of with Brendan Sullivan gone. Now, there have been situations in both major sports, where guys announce they're entering the portal, before the season or during the season. Now, I don't know what that does other than just say you're basically a quitter. I don't know what that does. I think it's a big red light that for potential suitors, for people like John Nestor, and there may be I'm sure there was behind the scenes stuff there, but for you to announce that right before fall camp starts, there's no portal window open. You're not even giving yourself a chance to compete or show other teams that you're a competitor. So that would at least send some red flags up. I expect Iowa to carry all these guys into fall camp and into the season. What I don't know is if the future for Ryan Fitzgerald is at quarterback. I know he's coming in as a walk-on. He'll get there this summer as well, here probably this month. But I don't know. Maybe they see him somewhere else. My guess is, given the fact that he's Ryan Fitzgerald's, Pat Fitzgerald's son, that he probably, if he's got the physical traits, he's got good bloodlines, he could probably end up being a good player defensively. Size-wise, I don't even know what he's listed at, but that would be maybe my quarterback to watch this offseason, just to see if he changes positions.
So before we let this ranking go, Corey, here's the schedule, which you've seen a zillion times. But basically, and of course, they do that to me. There we go. For them to be in the top 25 at the end of the regular season, they're almost assuredly going to have to be 9-3. 8-4 may do it if it's an impressive 8-4. But then at the end of the at the conclusion of the entire season, they're going to have to be 9-4 to finish in the top 25.
You know what's funny? Is this is the first time this has ever happened. But last year I had certain Hawkeye fans really get upset because I said a number of occasions that when they were, destined for 8-4, 7-5, I said nobody cares. I had people mad because I said that, and I don't care, man.
I was a little perplexed by that. I'm not going to say I was mad, but I asked you that once they played themselves out of the playoff. I said, is it important for them to finish strong, have as good a record as possible, win a bowl game? You were like, no, don't care.
Well, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, is it good for recruiting? Yes. Do you want to finish your year on a high note? Yes. Do you want to go to bowl and get bowl prep? Yes, 100%. But I'm just saying, from a win-loss standpoint and a success standpoint, to me as a fan, notwithstanding those factors that I just brought up, which are mainly developmental factors and recruiting factors, I don't care. I don't care if they end up in Tampa. I don't care if they end up in Orlando. I don't care if they end up in Jacksonville. It doesn't matter to me. And listen, the not the NCAA, but the playoff committee and these conferences of realignment, they have created this beast with the college football playoff and the expanded playoff. And so we don't need to get into that go down that rabbit hole again. But when you talk about anything less than 9-3, my first reaction is to say, I don't care. I don't care to split hairs over 6-6, 7-5, or 7-5, 8-4. I don't care about that. I just don't. Now, if they have an opportunity, I think they have an opportunity. If they were a team that was projected to be 5-7, 6-6, we'd probably be talking about, okay, is this the end of the KIRK FERENTZ era?
Mm-hmm.
I think this late in his tenure, it's fair to talk about that. So it's like with basketball, Fran McCaffrey's team didn't make the NCAA tournament, and they weren't real close to making the NCAA tournament. So that was year 2. But what were we talking about? Is he going to be the next head coach at Iowa? So to me, that's what the playoff has done, and what the NCAA tournament really does. It's always been this way, except it's a much larger field, so it makes more sense. What the playoff has done now is it's created those scenarios where oftentimes we're either analyzing a team's playoff chances or a team's potential to have a coaching change. There's not a whole lot of gray area in there for Power 4, Power 5 programs. Now, Iowa can be labeled the exception because they're so consistently in that narrow tier of 8-4, 9-3 that will not make the playoff. Am I making sense when I kind of say
I understand where you're coming from. I don't think it's quite that cut and dry, but I'm with you.
I do think that it's a smaller in-between area, and I just think there's less people that really care about that in-between area. I think if they get to 9-3, we're talking about a potential opportunity at the playoff. But as we've talked about, if 9-3, this is just like last year, if 9-3 includes a win against Iowa State, forget it. The only way 9-3 gets you into the playoff is if one of the three losses is at Iowa State. So do you want them to lose to Iowa State? No. But don't expect them to get in if they lose 3 conference games, because they're not getting in at 9-3 without a trip to Indy. They're not.
So you would rather have them lose to Iowa State and go 7-2 in the Big Ten?
Well, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I?
Well, I would think, number one, you would want to beat your chief rival.
If it keeps you out of the playoffs, that is the name of the game, whether people like it or not. The name of the game right now is college football playoff berths. So their best chance as a 3-loss team is to lose 2 in the Big Ten and then 1 at Iowa State, because maybe 7-2 is good enough to get you in Indy, and it probably won't be anyways.
I would argue on your side, but for a different reason, because Iowa State is the second game of the season, and they're going to look more impressive dropping one early and then getting on a roll.
Iowa State's also projected to be pretty good. Klatt's got them as, I think, a top 15 team. So that loss doesn't hurt you, except it does. I mean, it hurts you, but it doesn't hurt you to the extent that losing at Nebraska would, or losing at USC would. And potentially, you talk about tiebreakers. You lose to a Penn State or to an Oregon at an inopportune time, a team that's right there neck and neck for a potential berth in Indy, then obviously that's an inopportune loss.
You don't even feel that comfortable about going to Wisconsin.
No. Why would I? I've had this debate with you before. Why would I feel comfortable going to Madison, a place that Iowa's won exactly 1 game since 2015?
I understand that. So if you're going to include Wisconsin in this difficult, let's go back another game. I was going to stop there to Indiana. This entire stretch drive, it's not even a stretch drive. It's almost the entire Big Ten schedule. Even though there's no Ohio State, no Michigan, it's still, everyone's formidable. Like nobody's a pushover.
Do we know what Michigan's going to look like this year?
I mean, they're going to be good.
Okay. Well,
I just told Dace, we just recorded Michigan podcast a couple hours ago. I told him that this is shaping up as the most wide open Big Ten race in 25 years.
Okay, great. But is that because there's less? Well, you say wide open, you're expecting Ohio State to take a significant bounce back.
Significant? No.
A significant. I mean, if you say it's wide open, then that means it's not a 1-team race. It's not a 2-team race. It's not a 3-team race. I would take you to mean it's a 5+ team race.
Yes, it has the potential to be wide open, because you're right. Yeah, I think the Penn State on paper is the best team, but we know that their coach and quarterback can't necessarily be trusted in big games.
Yes.
And they're going to go to Columbus and play.
And I think
certainly much always lose that game.
I could be wrong, but I think certain people are going to and I think I already see it. They're going to overrate Penn. They got a lot of talent coming back. They're always good on the back end, but certain people are going to overrate Penn State because of the fact that they have one of those weird rarities where they have a potential, a good NFL prospect returning at quarterback. There's so many guys that either when they're eligible, jump to the league or transfer and get a bag. And so Drew Aller, to me, is an exception to the modern day rule. I think people are going to read into that a little bit too much and forget about maybe some of the quarterback talent that are at some of these other schools, namely Ohio State. I still don't know. I mean, I got a lot of questions. Dace is an authority, but I don't think there's any question. An obvious reason why you're drinking the Kool-Aid is because you just got off a broadcast with Dace. But the bottom line is, they have question marks. They got their coach in hot water. We're still talking about Connor Stallions. You got a suspension pending. You got a team that struggled at quarterback all of last year. You got a 5-star kid coming in, but they were clearly shopping in the transfer portal. So I don't know what to make of them. I still think there's question marks. I don't have any faith in Jerome Moore.
Okay. Well, I'm not drinking anybody's Kool-Aid.
All right. Well, I think
anybody's Kool-Aid. No.
I think Iowa will beat Indiana at home. 100%. I think they will beat them at home.
100%.
100%. I think they will. I'm not saying there's a 100% chance. I'm saying I 100% believe they will beat them.
All right.
And
I just, again, even though we're taking maybe the best team off the table, Ohio State, and maybe one of the 3 or 4 best teams, Michigan, I'll liken this to what I saw in USC's schedule last year when I picked them to go, whatever I picked them to go, and people just went crazy because they thought, oh, they're so much better than that. They're better than these teams, Rutgers and Nebraska. Yeah, they're better than each one of them, but the accumulation of that grind, this is a grind. And I know there's a couple bye weeks in there, but Indiana, Wisconsin, Penn State, Minnesota, Oregon, USC, Michigan State, and then Nebraska, that's a pretty good grind.
If Mark Gronowski's healthy and they stay healthy at receiver and continue to progress, I mean, you know what I'd love to do, and we can do that here. We could easily do a pessimist optimist version of a schedule breakdown, because I can give you a pessimistic look at the schedule and I can give you an optimistic look at the schedule. I mean, my pessimistic version is, hey, they have to play at Iowa State and a third-year quarterback in Rocco Becht, a series where they've played with fire too many times, lost last year, and even when they've won, it's been close every year. Like I said earlier, they haven't beaten Wisconsin in Camp Randall more than once. They've struggled to cross multiple time zones and win, namely UCLA. Hey, they struggled at Michigan State last year and lost that game. They got to go to Rutgers. Oregon's going to be really good again. I mean, does anybody expect them to beat the Ducks? I guess it's at home, so you give them a chance. They lost in LA last year, so do we expect them to go to USC and win? We saw what Aiden Childs did to the Hawkeyes. He comes to Kinnick, and then Nebraska's got a second-year 5-star in Dylan Raiola. So they're and Penn State. Oh, by the way, best team in the early, darling for best team in the country is Penn State, and they come to Kinnick. And even though Iowa loves to play them at night, rarely do they beat them at night. So there's your pessimistic view. Like, I just squinted and saw my way to like 4-8.
Yeah.
But I also think it's more realistic to direct my blows to the optimistic side. And Iowa has dominated the Iowa State rivalry. They're not going to lose to Albany. They'll get here's the other thing. They're going. I think Kirk Ferentz, if he beats Albany, won't he have the Big Ten record then for wins? I believe that all he has to do is beat Albany.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong on that. Maybe
he's going to tie Woody Hayes. He'll tie him.
So then the Iowa State game is going to mean a lot as well. So to do that in Ames is going to mean a lot to Kirk Ferentz. So if he does that there, they want revenge from last year, from losing that game at home last year. UMass has been a horrendous program. Indiana was a darling last year like they were in 2020, but what happened in 2021? Michael Penix went down, struggled with injury in the offseason, recouped and was never the same, and then was out the rest of the year and transferred. So I could see Indiana, even though it's a different regime, taking a step back. Penn State, again, best team in the country, but I could see them being overrated. I would not be shocked to see that game end up being at night. Minnesota's a series they've really dominated, and they've got extra ammunition because they have somebody that left the defensive backfield to go play for the Gophers and John Nestor. You get Oregon, but you get Oregon at home. You get a USC team that, Iowa did beat them out in Southern California back in 2019. Again, different players, different coaches on the USC side. Hopefully Iowa learned. You could argue Iowa probably learned from that experience last year at UCLA. They want revenge on Michigan State, I have no doubt. After what happened to them up in East Lansing, they'll get them at home. And I believe the last time Iowa played Michigan State at home was the Cooper DeJean punt return, where he kind of single-handedly won that game. And the time before that may have been 2020 when Iowa thrashed Rocky Lombardi and those guys during the COVID year. And then at Nebraska, Nebraska's going to Nebraska. I mean, Iowa just finds a way, it seems like every year, virtually every year, to beat them in a variety of ways. So, I mean, I just talked you through 12 wins, Mark. I mean, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think there's a wide array of possibilities. Do I think it's logical or reasonable to expect Iowa to even be in contention for 12-0? No, because like you said, you're going to have that group of games. A team like Iowa, with its lack of depth comparative to some of these other major programs, it's going to be hard for Iowa to come away with less than 2 losses. But could they come away with just 2 losses? Sure. I mean, I could see. Could you see them stealing either Oregon or Penn State at home?
Sure.
I don't think they're going to win both of those, but they are at home. Their most difficult road game on the schedule is probably Iowa State, correct? Like, they have a very favorable road schedule. Rutgers is favorable. They've played well in Lincoln. Yes, I think that USC trip is daunting. I just think everything about that, I don't like that. And I'm probably a little gun shy from UCLA last year. By the way, I'm glad they don't play the UCLA, because as much as hype has been made about Nico, I don't really care to see him play up against Iowa again. The last time that happened, it didn't work very well. So, and they didn't have a quarterback last year, not a very good one, and they still ran all over Iowa. So,
yeah, well, I'll just cut to the chase. That the reasonable optimistic viewpoint, I think I agree with you, is 10-2. Could they do better than that? They can win against everyone on the schedule. Just to your point, they could go 12-0, but 10-2 is kind of the high ceiling, realistic goal. Now, on the downside, on the pessimistic side, yeah, if they lose to Iowa State in non-conference play, and then they dive into conference play, and let's group together Rutgers, Indiana, and Wisconsin. Let's say they drop one of those. They could drop one of those.
Easily.
You would think it would be the Wisconsin game.
Yeah, but they could drop 2 of those.
They could drop 2 of those. And they're at 3 losses already. And then they've got Penn State. They'd lose game number 4. And let's even give them a win against Minnesota and say they lose to Oregon and USC and Nebraska. Yeah, 5-7.
So I think the reasonable floor is 5-7. The reasonable ceiling is 10-2, which probably means they finish somewhere in between. So we're looking at either 7-5 or 8-4.
8-4 is right. Well, I guess it's right in the middle. But I would say that the 10-2 is more likely than the 5-7.
Okay. I don't think it's as slam dunk as you're making it out to be, but okay. I'm good with that. I think it's going to be tough to get to 10-2. I mean, and so maybe you argue the other way. It'd be real tough for them to find their way to 5-7. Now, I guess here's my question: what happens if, assuming all these guys stay at quarterback through fall camp and into the season, and what happens if Mark Gronowski goes down week 1? I mean, do they?
Yeah.
I mean, who is it? Is Hecklinski hadn't even gotten there? Fitzgerald hadn't even gotten there. We know what Stratton is, but where does their the ceiling with a passing game? Where does it move with a Jimmy Sullivan or a Jackson Stratton or a Hank Brown? My guess is it would probably be Hank Brown, because I think he's a better athlete than Stratton. And I keep hearing, everybody said, well, Kirk made a comment. Yeah, I was in the press. I love how these people try to tell me what Kirk said after the practice. Yes, I was in the press room. He has stated, and he said it also during, I think, his radio show a few days later, Stratton was up and down during practice. That's what I heard. That's what we saw. But we also saw the higher end of that in that open practice. He looked good. He had the best arm in that spring practice. So I'll be interested. I think the biggest question for me is, what does this look? What does the fall depth chart look like? Fall camp depth chart. Because Gronowski, barring some setback, unforeseen setback, he's going to be number 1. I have no idea who number 2 is going to be. I have no idea who number 2. It could be one of 3 people easily.
If Mark Gronowski goes down, then they're going to have to play vintage Iowa defense, which is certainly possible, to get them to 8 or 9 wins.
Yeah. Well, they have worked their way to 8. They have worked their way to 9 and 10 wins with the likes of Deacon Hill and Spencer Petras, but they've done so on a much more favorable schedule.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no Purdue on this schedule. There's no Illinois in a down year.
Yeah, why don't we get
Northwestern?
Who was it today said that Illinois, was it Heather Dinich or some major person out there? I don't know how you feel about Heather Dinich. She'd be a good person to add to the show.
Yeah.
But someone said that they expect Illinois to be this year's Indiana, which I don't think it's a. What is this, James? What does this mean? What am I? What are we? I haven't been looking at the chat. What's because I live in Ames and I have a soft spot for. I have a soft spot in my heart for ISU. That's what James says. In my heart, Mark. My heart.
I don't know. I don't. I certainly don't detect that when we've got Levi on here. You seem to have a pretty healthy respect/dislike for Iowa State that I would expect a college football fan, a college sports fan to have, that's not delusional or outrageous and thinking that this is life and death. That it's just, I don't like Iowa State. They're a rival.
Without naming people, it is amazing. And it's not just with Iowa, but it is amazing, Mark. You work with, here's what's great about your platform. And this is why this platform is going to last forever. But here's what's great about this platform is you have people who are fans, and then you have real, like, authentic media people who wouldn't classify themselves as fans. So you have a mix of both. But there's it's amazing the number of media people that cover college sports. And honestly, the more I've gotten to follow the media side of some professional sports, namely like the Indiana Fever, Dallas Mavs, that kind of thing, it's amazing how few of these reporters are actually objective reporters. Like, can we agree on that? Like, there are very few objective team reporters. And I get it. But if you're going to cover a team, it's going to be hard to remain objective. Even if you began the job on the objective side. I mean, there's so many guys that they get jobs for Rivals and 247 and on 3 of these different networks, and they have no connection to Iowa. But within a year of working for Iowa, they are fanboys and fangirls. And it's just fun. I find it humorous. I am a fan, without question. But yeah, I do have a healthy level of respect for a lot of programs, including Iowa State. Hey, I got respect for Nebraska. I mean, like, anybody that is even trying to remain objective can look at things like Nebraska's new basketball facility and say, wow, that's an impressive arena. Like, they did a really good job. I wish that Iowa had an arena like that. I went to Creighton and visited CHI when Iowa played at Creighton a couple years ago. I'm like, man, this is a great atmosphere. Like, these fans are driving me nuts. I was not covering that as a media person. I was in the stands. I had Creighton fans mocking me throughout the entire game, like turning around and mocking me. And the only explanation I can have is there's a lot of Nebraska fans that wear Creighton blue for basketball.
Did you have an Iowa shirt on?
I may have, but I would, here's the deal. When if I am at an Iowa event as a non-media person, I am mostly a respectful observer. I'm not heckling. I'm not doing any of that nonsense. I may yell out, attaboy Josh, or whatever the case may be. So, like, that is what ignited some of the vitriol. I was amazed by that. But I have a healthy level of respect for where respect needs to be had. But look at the viewer count here, Mark. We got 160 people watching. I mean, that number just continues to grow. People just coming from all sights and sounds and places, all the 4 corners of the earth there, Mark.
Well, I'm putting a little work in for us on game day, or at least before game day, and getting out on these Facebook groups. I don't know that helps or it doesn't, but I promote our show a little bit.
Well, that number keeps going up, so keep telling all your friends about our show, folks.
Absolutely. Tell somebody out there. Bring one with you next week, or 2, or more.
Did you see that just in Akron is no longer eligible for bowl games due to academics? Their academic progress rate has dropped below 914. Hey, where's your guy Tony Altimore? Isn't
I
he?
have not heard that about anyone. I've
No,
never
that's
heard that about a school period that's
I'm
been
just, it just
ineligible.
on 3 is saying they are no longer eligible due to academics because of that number.
Yeah.
Where's your guy Tony Altimore? I haven't seen him in a long time.
Yes, we've not connected with Tony for quite some time.
So also Ivory Kelly Martin, former
Yes.
Iowa running back, just got
Yeah.
hired as running backs coach at Bemidji State. Just
Where?
saw that. Bemidji. I believe that's D2.
No.
Bemidji. You never heard of Bemidji?
No.
Really?
Where is that located?
I believe that's Minnesota. Yeah, Minnesota.
Okay. Yes. Up in that part of the country I've never been.
Yeah, it is D2.
You've gone to games in Minneapolis, correct?
I was never at, what are they at now? Is it TCF Bank Stadium or they call it something else now? I never went to the Dome. I've never been to US Bank. I've never been to the new state. I've been to the Barn for basketball. So I've been to Mall of America. You've been to Legoland, Mark?
I have never been in that part of the country.
You've never been to Legoland, or I'm sorry, to the Mall of America. All right.
I've never been to Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, the
Oh, man.
Dakotas.
Hey, a lot of Wisconsins will tell you that's just paradise up there. They'll just tell you it's paradise. I've been to Wisconsin. It's not paradise, but it's nice. You know what? There's a lot of beauty in the Midwest. I think we can agree on that. There's a lot of beauty in the Midwest. By the way, I tuned into one of your shows the other day, and all of a sudden I start hearing about your dating life. Like, what's going on now? All of a sudden, Voice of College Football turns into the dating life of the Voice of College Football. Why don't you just name a channel Dating at the Voice of College Football? What is happening?
There were some comments made in the chat about dating, and then I kind of opened up from there.
This proves that I watch your show, Mark. This proves that I watch your show.
At least you did for a few minutes before you heard that and probably shut it down.
If I fell asleep, I woke back up because it was such an odd topic of conversation.
Well, when we bring up odd topics like that, sometimes it shuts people down, but other times it seems like people would rather hear about that kind of stuff. But yes, I shared a few things and then I thought better of it. So that was the end of that.
By the way, I want to hit this before we forget about it because I see it's already 10 after 5. Big announcement coming tomorrow. Crown Point athlete Trevor Gibbs. So he took a visit to Iowa here not that long ago. I believe he's got a top 5 of Purdue, Cincinnati, Boston College, and Iowa. Indiana, if I missed them. So you're basically competing against 3 schools in that neck of the woods, plus BC. And I think Iowa sees him as a linebacker. He's a pretty big guy, pretty big kid for the class of 26 at 6'4", 235. But I believe that Seth Wallace and company have been recruiting him to play linebacker. I don't know who his primary recruiter is, so I don't have an answer for you on that. But he had offers from all those schools I just mentioned, in addition to Illinois. There may have been a couple of other P5 schools in on him, but he's expected. I think he's announcing tomorrow at his high school, which I saw somebody make a comment about, why is a 3-star making an announcement like everybody cares? I'm like, dude, this is one of the biggest moments of the kid's life. Like, I have no problem with a young man. He's got a bunch of good offers. These are major schools he's got. Yeah. Let the kid announce how he wants to announce, but I'll find the official time here for. Go ahead.
Yeah, who is the person that's going to make that decision that, oh, you are a big enough prospect that you can announce. You're not a big enough prospect that you can announce.
Right. Well,
yeah.
Okay, so Trevor Gibbs is scheduled to make an announcement at 6 p.m. I believe that's Eastern time, right? Indiana's Eastern time, correct, Mark?
Well, it's split.
Okay, well, I'm not in the business of trying to figure out where Crown Point is as it relates to
they're in the middle there.
So tomorrow at the college, let's see here, indoor turf facility at Crown Point. So I don't know if they'll be televising this or not, but yeah, he is making a choice between those 5 schools.
This is the level prospect that we should go after for a commitment announcement.
I get anxiety when you bring up these types of topics because I so want to be the driving force behind this. I really do. I don't know why you don't get one of your minions to just focus on it. You've got so many people just pushing the VOCFB brand just left and right. I just constantly see it. I mean, I text your guy TJ about something and he gets back to me within 5 seconds. It's like he's AI or something. Like he's voice of college football AI. He just has a response immediately. That's great.
I can only imagine what you guys are texting back and forth about.
I'll tell you later.
Our guy here, the Rolofson, says that we would have housing there if we went to a game in Minneapolis.
Or is he implying that he's going to share a room with one of us? Because I don't think that'll work out. But D. Rolofson, if you have an Airbnb, let me know. Yeah. Hey, I'll probably make it. In all honesty, I probably will try to make it up to Minnesota this year because I have not been to the Twin Cities since 2020. No, it was 2020. It's been I can't believe it's been 5 years. It was the last time I was up there for anything. We went up there, we went to the barn. Yeah, it's a cool town, a cool downtown, lots of things to do. You'd be surprised in the wintertime.
Well, I thought for the football game there for a second, but that's at Iowa City.
Yeah, but I believe basketball. I believe basketball there this year.
You made a comment last week that you found it difficult to know what to expect from Iowa's transfer portal additions. And you said that not just for this particular offseason, but for previous off seasons. And I'll have one of my minions do this. I would love to see a count of how many Iowa portal additions are power conference players. The reason I think that they're difficult to project is that they don't have a major college football track record. They hardly ever get. When is the last time that they got a power conference player in the transfer portal? Iowa is the king of bringing in these guys from Delaware State or Ferris State or these.
Ferris State, hey, power at D2 level. But let me just make something very clear. Does anybody know who Nick Jackson is? Anybody ever heard of Nick Jackson?
All right.
Oh, real quick.
You know what I mean? Like
Virginia,
90%.
Virginia. Ever heard of Cade McNamara? Michigan.
There's very few. Caleb Brown, Ohio State.
I just named two. Now, Caleb Brown, you came up with one.
Okay.
And that one didn't work out. Cade McNamara,
one pass.
Coy Cronk, Indiana, was a starter at Indiana, but that didn't work out.
It's still very few.
Well, I don't know that you're going to find, honestly, I don't know that you're going to find a correlation. Yeah, Jacob Gill, Brendan Sullivan, both Northwestern. I don't know that you're going to find a correlation between success at Iowa via the portal from guys coming out of the Power Four, coming from another Power Four program. I don't know that you're going to see a correlation there versus guys that were just successful D2. I mean, Zach Van Valkenburg, he was, I believe, D2 or D3. He was a really good defensive lineman for Iowa. He hadn't done anything in the NFL, but he's a very good college football player. I think Seth Anderson and let's see, who am I trying to think of? Seth Anderson and the kid from Sam Phillips, both those guys, FCS, but I think both those guys have a chance to contribute immediately. They've had good success. Miami, Ohio. Hey, Rusty Feth came over from Miami, Ohio, was successful. So yeah, maybe they're a little harder to rate or evaluate if you're the common Joe, but I mean, Iowa, I think, is probably batting a similar percentage with high major guys as they are with mid major guys, so to speak. Go back down. Go to you got okay. Bryce Hawthorne, South Dakota State. Gronowski, South Dakota State. Hank Brown is Auburn.
They signed 9 and 3 from major conferences. I'm just saying that.
Go back up.
It seems like an aberration compared to other power conference schools.
Have we talked about Ty Hudkins? He did sign. How about that? Ty Hudkins and Jeremy Hiklinski, both those guys, Purdue and Wake.
I know, 3 out of 9.
Okay, but I mean, I don't know. Are you insulting them, or are you
No, I'm
just?
not insulting them. It just hit me when you made that comment last week. I thought, it seems like every time we talk about, it seems like when I am talking about transfer portal players, whether it's on our recruiting show or on some other show, we're usually talking about guys that I can relate to because I'm like, oh, I watched that guy at Alabama. I watched that guy at Ole Miss. I watched that guy at fill in the blank, Penn State. But with Iowa, it always seems like, oh yeah, they got this linebacker from Ferris State. They got this defensive end from Incarnate Word. Like these
Incarnate
places where
Word.
I'm like, yeah, I have no idea who this guy is.
Well, remember, Bryce George was wanted by USC. I think Bryce Hawthorne is going
That's
to
not
be.
my point. I am not knocking Iowa. I'm just saying it's difficult for me to join in the conversation when I have no idea who these guys are.
Look at
Because they
Alex.
didn't
Look at
play.
Alex Mander in the chat. Mark is a hater. Hater. By the way, they've also haven't hit the JUCO level as much here in the last few years, but they've been Mekhi Sargent is a great example. Hey, Caden Weegan. Now, a lot of those JUCO, as you know, Mark, oftentimes involves kids that have maybe are behind in development or maybe an academic issue. Sean Green was an example of that, and then they end up transferring up. So I don't even know that you really put JUCO kids in the same transfer portal light.
Now, Cheviota is making the comment that only 5 of 23 outgoing are going to, excuse me, Power 4 teams. But I would think that that is a low number for any power conference team because you're usually losing players. A lot of the players, I should say, that you're losing obviously just couldn't find a place on the depth chart. So they're going to drop down in class.
Well, the other part of this we have to remember is that Iowa trimmed more than they ever do because of the whole expectation of roster limits. So they trimmed guys down, and a lot of them were, I don't know if he's counting walk-ons. I don't know. I'm assuming 23 counts the walk-ons. So if it counts walk-ons, Mark, what do you expect? That's why they're walk-ons, because they don't have. Why would they come to Iowa as a walk-on if they could have gone somewhere else in the Power 5 on scholarship? A lot of these kids have gone the walk-on route, and hey, if you're a walk-on at Iowa, there's a good chance you have an opportunity at a lower tier school, FCS, or even a G5 program to be on scholarship. So, yeah, I definitely wouldn't. I wouldn't read into that.
Hey, folks, if you did not see the entire show, just understand that you can watch what you missed as soon as we're done. You can just rewind and watch the 10 or 15 minutes or 50 minutes that you missed any of these weeks. And, of course, catch Corey at from the Hawkeye at the Storm. So what's going on the big channel this week?
Well, it's an empire, first of all. Let's get that out of the way. It's an empire. No, actually, hey, really exciting. So last week we debuted our interview with none other than Chastity Chit Chat Wright, who is a really charismatic young lady who's got 3 years of eligibility ahead of her. She's coming up from Georgia Tech with Lysandra Barrett, who's one of the new assistant coaches for Iowa. So that was cool. If you haven't checked that out, I know a lot of people flocked over there to watch that. Certainly, you can listen to it on podcast if you'd rather the audio. And this morning, I have not talked about this officially, but it's going to be dropping tomorrow, so I might as well talk about it. Was able to have about 30 minutes with none other than new Iowa men's basketball head coach, Ben McCollum. So we got Ben McCollum on the show. We'll debut that interview tomorrow. Always insightful. He's been great at I know he's talked to a lot. He is making his rounds as far as media. He's really trying to put himself out there as the new face of the program, which is great. So I got some time with Ben this morning, and then in at least a week or two, probably next week, we're going to have like 3 straight weeks of podcasts. Bryce George, new incoming Iowa Ferris State transfer. Bryce George. Sorry, Mark, I had to throw that in your face. This kid, hey, I'll tell you what, talk about just a classic Midwest ground and pound type of kid who earned his way, had opportunities at basically nowhere besides Western Michigan and Ferris State. And by the way, Western Michigan did not want him as an offensive tackle. Now he's a 315-pound tackle who is being touted, recruited by the likes of Cal and USC and Iowa. He's coming to Iowa, and he basically said, I'll play spoiler here for a second. Bryce George basically just told me he wanted to come to Iowa because he wanted the offensive line development that they can give him in 1 year. He basically has more confidence in Iowa than USC and Cal. He did not visit those schools. So this is the big takeaway from that interview. Bryce George had visits scheduled to Cal, USC, and Iowa. Iowa was scheduled to be last. Iowa was able to move that visit up in front of USC and Cal. He never bothered to take visits to USC and Cal. Never bothered to take visits. So, some people may say, well, that's due to NIL. I have no doubt NIL, he's getting NIL to come here, right? But I'm guessing USC would have been able to give him some NIL incentive. For him to not even take a trip out to LA, an official visit, a paid-for visit to LA to visit USC. And I asked him, why not take those visits? I'm not telling you you're wrong, but why not take the visits? He basically is like, I don't know why I would. Like, I knew what I wanted to do. And he said, there's and Chit Chat Right was sort of the same thing with Iowa. She's like, if you know, you know. So both of those prospects, really fun interviews. The Bryce George interview will likely drop next week. We'll get Ben McCollum's out there tomorrow. Folks, if you have not, if you own a business or you are associated with a business in Iowa, okay, and you want more exposure, we're the largest Iowa Hawkeye platform on YouTube right now, and one of the fastest growing podcasts in Hawkeye land. So obviously, I don't want to take away from the opportunities here at the Voice of College Football, which are far beyond just Iowa, but certainly reach out to Mark or myself because we can get your name out there and expose you to a lot of businesses. And again, the next couple of weeks, there's going to be a lot of high profile podcasts and interviews that people are going to want to click on and watch. There's my little promotion for the day.
No, that was great. Absolutely. What Corey has going there at from the Hawkeye of the Storm is first class, the very best in Iowa football, basketball coverage. Let me address this. Okay, Alexander. I knew this would get misconstrued, what I had to say. Like, I'm this elitist, and if you played at this school or didn't play in the Power, then you're no good. That's not what I said. So Alexander's saying here, lower level football players are still very good, Mark. Guys jump back and forth a lot right now. And since Iowa doesn't have the $1 billion like Ohio State, we aren't going to get the big name guys. Hey, did you hear what came out of my mouth? It was not a judgment on these players. Yes, there are players from all levels who come to the Power Conference level and succeed and do great, or never come to the Power Conference level and go to the NFL and succeed. That was not my point. I made the point. I was making 2 points. Point number one was that Corey had made the comment last week, hey, it's difficult for me to get a handle on a lot of these incoming transfers and projecting how good they're going to be. And we moved on with the conversation. So I didn't respond the way what was going through my mind was, well, it is more difficult if you're taking a guy from the FCS level or the lower group of 5 level and trying to project how they're going to be in the Big Ten, as opposed to saying, yeah, Caleb Downs was an All-American at Alabama as a safety. He went to Ohio State. We know exactly who this guy is. He's one of the best players in the country. That's the only point I was making. Nick Jackson comes from Virginia and is the all-time leader in tackles at the University of Virginia. We got a pretty good idea that he's going to be good at Iowa too. That's the only point I was making. And my second point was that I had less information and less evaluation and analysis to make because I am pretty up on the landscape of college football at the Power Conference level and know a lot of these guys. I've watched them play and I have an analysis. I have a take, but when some guys coming from a lower level, FCS, group of 5, I haven't seen him play, so I don't have any input. Those were the 2 points I was making.
I think part of the reason why I made the comment last week was probably talking about Bryce George. That is one, and I asked KIRK FERENTZ the question. I asked Bryce George the question. It is one of the more difficult evals that you can have as a talking head because we're watching D2 or high school tape. D2 tape, and we're supposed to project whether this guy's going to be he's got 1 year of eligibility. He's going to be an immediate impact guy. He's played his whole career at D2 and dominated lower level competition. So it's harder to evaluate from the perspective of he's D2 and he's got 1 year left, with no real time for extensive development. And then secondly, he plays a position that I'll admit I know very little about, offensive line. By the way, I'll leading into the question, I asked him how some of the best guys that he's lined up against, and I don't remember the guy's name. There's somebody who is with the Chargers now that played at like Saginaw Valley or something. Because that was one thing that Don Patterson brought up after the spring game was spring practice. He said, if you're trying to evaluate a D2 guy, you're probably going to look, okay, who are the best players he's lining up against? And so, if he's got tape against guys that have made their way up to the Power 5 level or to the NFL level, then you're probably going to hyper focus on some of that tape. And it sounds like Bryce George has some of that tape. So the other thing is I was going to mention real quick, maybe one exception to the rule of what Iowa has typically done is Ty Hudkins, this DB out of Purdue, because here's a kid who has 4 years of eligibility remaining, Mark. He's done nothing. He played, I think, on special teams as a true freshman, but he didn't even cross the threshold of 4 games played, so he's still got 4 years left. You are right about that. They have not gone after unproven P4 guys. They're either going against really proven G4 guys, G5 guys, or lower, or they're going for really proven Power 4 guys. Caleb Brown is a bit of an exception because he was largely unproven, and that one didn't work out. But Cade McNamara, very proven. Nick Jackson, very proven, etc. So Ty Hudkins is an interesting one simply because they like him, and now you got to kind of recruit the portal like you do high school and kind of evaluate guys similarly.
I was actually scouring the Chargers roster trying to figure out who that is. I couldn't find him.
Maybe he's not even on the.
I couldn't find a defensive lineman from a small school.
Will you give me 5 seconds and I'll figure it out?
Sure.
Give me 5 seconds and I'll try and figure this one out here. Here, do you want to talk about what you had? Here, how about you talk about what you had out to eat on your last date?
What I had to eat
on your last date?
I had that particular weekend, I went to a place called the Yard House that I'd never been to in Orlando. It was pretty good. I don't remember what I got. Also swung through a Cane's late at night.
Okay.
Went and got some ice cream at some point.
Okay.
Had some Easter dinner at a friend's house. That was part of the festivities as well that weekend.
You've been hitting up Culver's a lot lately?
I almost texted you the other day because I got a Culver's coupon sheet in the mail. I was going to take a picture of it, send it to you.
Wait a minute, I think you did.
I probably did the time before, but I didn't.
Okay.
I just got another one like 3 days ago.
Those are the best, aren't they? Aren't those the best? I mean, you use those, right?
No, I have not used them.
Well, okay. But I'm just saying you would.
I would, yes. I like to save money. Yes.
I mean, I guess my point is saying they are not bad. They're good coupons.
Yes.
All right. I'm getting closer to having an answer for you. Looking back through when I talked to Bryce.
Mozart's Ghost says Culver's shakes are thick.
I had a shake real quick. I had a shake the other day from I had a deal for a free Dairy Queen shake. And by the way, have you ever been to Dairy Queen and have you ordered anything from Dairy Queen in the last 5 years?
Oh, absolutely. blizzards all over the place.
All over the place. They are not cheap. Holy cow. You get like a mini, it's like $5.
It's funny that you say it that way, because I actually made the statement to somebody else the other day, the exact opposite. So I was doing some shopping, and there was a Cold Stone. Have you ever heard of Cold Stone?
We have a Cold Stone here in Ames, yes.
Okay. I hadn't been to a Cold Stone in probably 10 years. And I thought, okay, I'm out shopping. This sounds good. I'm going to go in there, have them load up. Like, I got French vanilla, chocolate chip cookie dough. I got Snickers, Reese's peanut butter cups. I got M&Ms. I got all this mixed in there. I got my large. I didn't even get the largest size, but after I got all that mixed in there, that thing was over $11. And you can get a blizzard for like $5, $6. You can get a large blizzard, because that's all I ever got was a large. I never got anything smaller than a large. And I think it was usually like $6.25.
Okay, I found the guy who we were looking for.
Okay.
Caleb Murphy. So Wikipedia says that he is. Well, I share my screen just so you know that I'm telling the truth here. So here's the kid that, again, giving you a preview of my interview with Bryce George. Murphy played at Grand Valley State before transferring to Ferris State. This says he's an American professional football linebacker for the Chargers. I did not see him when I looked at the Chargers roster, but he went up against Bryce George, I believe, in practice, because they both played for Ferris during the same time period. And also, I think it was at Ferris. Yeah. I don't even know if Grand Valley's in the same. Yeah. And he would have been before. He would have been at Grand Valley before Bryce went to Ferris. I think
he's on the roster. The reason I missed him is I was looking for a defensive lineman. I was thinking offensive lineman going up against a defensive lineman.
Well, he's a linebacker. I'm guessing maybe he played edge in college. Yeah. I don't know that.
Caleb Murphy, he is in his third year with the Chargers.
So, like, he's the type of guy that's a great example. Like, that's why I love talking to Don, because I would not be shocked if Kirk/Phil Parker, Kelvin Bell, if those guys went and found, you know what I'm saying? Like, sure. Okay, what do we have film of Bryce going up against Caleb Murphy? Do we have film about him going up against an edge guy who's an NFL dude now, even though he played in D2? So that's my point.
This guy has made 3 tackles in his career in 3 seasons.
Yeah, so he's not a star at the NFL level, but I mean, the point is, if he's even getting a cup of coffee in the league, he's much better than D2. That's all I'm saying.
Sure.
He's obviously power for quality. And if Bryce George was going out there and just dominating him, which he probably wasn't, but if he did, then that would be impressive.
All right, folks, we do appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. We got the most people here that we've had the entire time, so we're pushing like 175. Watch what you missed. Like Erica, it appears as though you can go to Culver's now, and you can rewind this, and you can listen to the entire show. How about that?
Who wouldn't want to go back? I go back and listen to it like 3 times.
Absolutely, you do. All right, folks. Back here next Tuesday, everyone, 5:30 Eastern, 4:30 where it counts. We'll see you next Tuesday. In the meantime, from the Hawkeye of the Storm should be your daily destination. So we'll see you soon.